What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another post-game show here on Mets Central. This is Mets fan interaction game number 59, where the New York Mets defeat the Colorado Rockies by a final score of 5-3, and crucially, they sweep the Colorado Rockies, which is something that when we did our last podcast, we begged the Mets, please go into play this Rockies team, take care of business, and sweep them like what a good team should do. Now, thankfully, they did that. Now, look, as a whole, and we'll discuss this tomorrow on the podcast that we're going to do with that, which we're going to, wrap up, talk about the entire series, and then end up previewing the Dodgers series. But look, for the most part, the Mets did what they had to do. Like I said, was it the prettiest overall series? No, because when you look at the games, at least score-wise, obviously the game that they won yesterday, the second game of the series, the Mets ended up winning 8-2, so they won by 6 runs. Had a bit of an offensive outburst, so that's what you like to see. The first and third game, you only win by 2 runs, so you would definitely like to win by a larger margin against this Rockies team, which, by the way, they are 9-50. Whew, that's a tough start for that Rockies team. They are not a good team, and I feel severely bad for that fan base because they deserve a lot better. They sell out that crowd over there in Coors Field in Denver. It's just, yeah, it's brutal to watch it. Just a team like that and just the record they have. But anyway, back to it. I mean, listen, this game, not a lot of action, to be honest. Not a lot of action because when you look at the score, 5-3, there was 8 runs scored, but really when you actually go through the game, there was only 10 hits through the game. The Mets had 5 and the Rockies had 5, and the game only lasted about 2 hours and 13 minutes. So a relatively quick game, which, listen, I do like quick games per se. Would have liked the Mets, to win the game by a little more, but like I said, you take care of the Rockies, you sweep them, now you head out to the West Coast, with and now they have a huge 4-game set against the LA Dodgers. So yeah, it was overall they took care of business. And the one big positive, well, actually 2 big positives today, because over the last couple weeks, especially the Mets, quote unquote, the top 3, the superstars in Lindor, Pete, and Soto, they have relatively struggled over the last couple weeks. But today, and what I really loved about today, was all 3 of them contributed to offensively in major ways. Obviously, you had Pete Alonso in the bottom of the 4th inning. He comes up through with a huge 3-run home run to give the Mets a 3-1 lead. Then right after the Colorado Rockies, they come back and they strike in the top of the 5th inning to have the game at 3. And then boom, right away, quick answer. Francisco Lindor comes through with a solo home run to put the Mets up 4-3. And then 8th inning, where you just felt like the Mets needed a little bit of an extra breathing room. Boom, Juan Soto comes through with a huge solo home run to extend the Mets lead by 2 and give them the 5-3 lead. And these 3 guys over these past series, relatively, they had a good series. And listen, I get it's against the Rockies, so quote unquote, those guys who are making a combined like 90s, no, even more, 100-something million dollars. Like I said, I know it's the Rockies, and still they're supposed to perform, but you like to see that. And like we've been saying, hopefully now this is a springboard where Lindor, he starts to get back on track. Soto, hopefully he wakes up and finally gets on that huge tear that that we've been waiting for as Met fans, and then hopefully Pete Alonso, he could get back to somewhat of a resemblance of what he was doing in the start of the season, where he was really tearing the cover off the ball in March and April. And then overall, you get their pitching side, which I'll talk about more when we break down the break down the game. Clay Holmes, listen. Overall, when you look at the line, giving up 3 runs to the Rockies, it's not necessarily the prettiest final line, but the big thing is he went out there, he threw strikes, and he gave the Mets length. This was the first time ever in Clay Holmes' career, especially as a starter, because he only pitched a couple as a starter in a short time in Pittsburgh in his first 2 years. But this was the first time as a starter where Clay Holmes managed to and pitch through a full, complete 7 innings. And even probably, because I think he only, by the time the 7th inning wrapped up, he only ended with about 85 or maybe 83 pitches. So he still had wiggle room to even go further. But the Mets said, okay, listen, Clay, you went a decent solid 7. Now let's go to the bullpen. And obviously, we'll talk about it more, because Reed Garrett obviously went in to pitch the 8th, and Edwin Diaz went in there in the 9th. and eventually shut the game down. So overall, like I said, I'll talk about it more, but Clay Holmes, overall solid start. And really, when you look at his start, he just made two bad pitches. It was, the first home run, it was a sinker over the plate, and then the home run later in the game to top the game at 3. It was just, he hung a slider over the plate. So listen, overall, Clay Holmes went out there, he was efficient, he gave the Mets length, he threw strikes, and he just made two mistakes. But other than the last couple starts where Clay Holmes had, where he's gone out, he's, gave the Mets length, he went out there, he threw strikes. The other times, whenever he made a mistake, the offense really wasn't there to back him up. This time, though, like I said, you would like to see a little bit more from the offense, but they did just enough. And especially when it's your top guys who are contributing, like I said, in, Lindor, Pete, and Soto, that is what's going to push this offense over to win a couple more baseball games. And hopefully, we start to see those three guys especially start to heat up, especially now, you're going to a huge 4-game set in LA against the Dodgers. You're really going to need those guys to step up, because we know the Dodgers top hitters are capable of stepping up and, having major offensive contributions. So these top three, they have to start, start clicking and really, going to that next level, which we all know that they can do. But overall, it was a solid one. But now let's actually go into the post game recap. And like always, before we get into it, make sure you guys always leave a like and subscribe on the channel. We greatly appreciate you guys' support here on the channel, and also make sure you hit the notification bell to let you know anytime we upload a video or go live here on the channel. Anytime we do a podcast, which we'll do tomorrow, and then for post game recaps like this. But overall, for the Mets today, it was Clay Holmes on the bump, and then for the Rockies, it was Palmquist. So overall, to start the game, quick 1-2-3 inning for Clay Holmes as Jordan Beck would fly out. Sam Hillard would single, but then he would get Ezekiel Tovar to ground into an inning-ending double play. Bottom of the first, quick 1-2-3 inning here by Palmquist as he gets Lindor to strike out, Marte strikes out, and Juan Soto flies out to end the inning. Top the second, 1-2-3 inning for Holmes as McMahon grounds out, Brendan Doyle lines out, and then Keston Hiura strikes out to end the inning. Then move on to the bottom of the second again, 1-2-3 inning here for Palmquist as he gets Alonso to strike out, Brett Beatty strikes out, and Luis Torrens strikes out. We then move on to the top of the third inning. Orlando Arcia, once a Brave, always a Brave. Typical former Brave in Orlando Arcia. He ends up hitting a home run, which this was the home run where Clay Holmes just left the sinker over the middle of the plate. So and by the way, with the because it was especially windy today in Citi Field, so the wind definitely did help this ball carry out a bit. And Tyrone Taylor almost did rob this home run as well. It just went off the tip of his glove. So, but anyway, Arcia ends up putting the Rockies up 1-0. Tyler Freeman then grounds out, Jacob Stolling strikes out, and then Jordan Beck grounds out. So good recovery there by Clay Holmes. We then move on to the bottom of the third. Once again, the Mets couldn't get anything going. Mark Vientos grounds out. Tyrone Taylor hits a single, but Luis Acuna strikes out, and Francisco Lindor pops out to end the inning. We then move on to the top of the fourth. A good 1-2-3 inning by Holmes as he gets Hilliard to ground out, Tovar grounds out, and then Ryan McMahon grounds out to end the inning. We then move on to the bottom of the fourth, and this is where the offense would finally wake up. Starling Marte would walk. He would then steal second. Juan Soto would be hit by a pitch, and then Pete Alonso would then hit a home run. He would take it to opposite field to put the Mets up 3-1. So nice to see there from Pete. Then Brett Beatty strikes out. Luis Torrens flies out. Mark Vientos with a double, but the Mets could not drive him in as Luis Torrens would strike out the inning. We then move on to the top of the fifth. Clay Holmes would get in a bit of trouble here as Brendan Doyle strikes out. Keston Hiura would be hit by a pitch. Orlando Arcia would then fly out. So 2 outs, man on first, but unfortunately, Clay Holmes just throws a very poor slider over the heart of the plate, and Tyler Freeman ends up taking that ball out to right field as well to tie the game up at 3-3. But thankfully, no more damage would be done that inning as Jacob Stallings would fly out to center field to end the inning. We then move on to the bottom of the fifth, and this is where the quick response would be by the Mets. Luis Acuna would line out to start the inning. Then Francisco Lindor steps up and hits a solo home run and puts the Mets up by a score of 4-3. Starling Marte would then fly out. Juan Soto would then walk. Rockies then make a pitching change. Jake Bird replaces Carson Palmquist, and he gets Pete Alonso to hit into a force out to end the inning. We then move on to the top of the sixth. Quick 1-2-3 inning by Clay Holmes. He gets Jordan Beck to line out. Sam Hillard flies out, and then Ezekiel Tovar grounds out to end the inning. Bottom of the sixth, 1-2-3 inning here for the Mets as Beatty strikes out, Luis Torrens strikes out, and Mark Vientos strikes out. to end that inning. We then move on to the top of the seventh. Brandon Nimmo comes in to replace Starling Marte in left field, which that's something I'll briefly talk about. Marte would actually start this game in left field, and he would hit second in place for Brandon Nimmo. But top seven, again, a quick 1-2-3 inning by Clay Holmes as Ryan McMahon pops out, Brenton Doyle grounds out, and Keston Hiura would ground out the end of the inning. And ultimately, that would be Clay Holmes' final day. So, like I said, overall, solid by Clay Holmes. He went out there, threw strikes, gave the Mets length. Obviously, like I said, you don't love the fact that he did give up 3 runs, and it was two home runs also. But like I said, it was a solid start, and thankfully for Holmes this time, the offense did back him up. So here we go. I'm going to pull it up. The final pitch line for Clay Holmes: 7 innings, 3 hits, 3 runs, no walks. 0 walks, which I do like. 3 Ks. Here's my thing with Clay Holmes. I think Holmes has been pitching well. I would like to see the swing and miss stuff start to come back in Holmes' game, especially because he started to be hit a little bit more with the home run bug, which is something that we saw over his Yankee tenure, where he would tend to give up a little bit more home runs. So I would like to see the swing and miss stuff start to come back. Obviously, the Rockies are a very swing first pitch team, and that was part of the reason why the game went very quick. To be honest, is because the Rockies they get in the box and they just like to swing early in counts and quickly in counts. So, that really helped with, Holmes getting a lot more ground balls. So overall, like I said, I would like to see the more swing and miss stuff come back from Clay Holmes, because that's something that we did see from him earlier in the season. So, but overall, like I said, solid start from, and then obviously, like I said, give the 2 home runs. His ERA is currently sitting at a 3.07 ERA. And then just overall, breaking down his start, with looking through his baseball savant page, 26 sweepers, which the sweeper was the pitch they threw the most, 25 sinkers, 16 four-seamers, 11 sliders, 5 changeup, 2 cutters. And then overall, like I said, when you break down and you look at the swing and miss stuff, got 12 swings, 4 whiffs on the sweeper, which I like to see. But interestingly, I like the sinker today, especially with his placement. Didn't get any whiffs on it though, which is a little bit weird from Clay Holmes. And 16 swings, no whiffs there on the sinker. 5 swings, 3 whiffs on the four seamer, and then 6 swings, 2 whiffs on the slider as well. And like I said, I like the sinker a lot, especially with the placement, because he threw it 80% in the zone, 73% in the zone with the slider as well, 58% with the sweeper. So overall, and then when you look at all of his pitches as well, threw everything for 59% in the zone. So overall, solid start by Clay Holmes. But then we move on to the bottom of the seventh. Tyler Kinley would come in to replace Jake Bird, and he would get Taylor to ground out, Luis Acuna would ground out, and then Francisco Lindor would pop out the end of the inning. We then move on to the top of the eighth. Reed Garrett would come in to replace Clay Holmes, and a very solid inning here by Reed Garrett. He'd get Orlando Arcia to ground out. Tyler Freeman would then hit a single. Then there will be a pinch hitter. Hunter Goodman would pinch hit for Jacob Stallings. Freeman then ends up stealing second, but then not Clay Holmes. Reed Garrett comes through with back-to-back strikeouts as he gets Hunter Goodman swinging and Jordan Beck swinging and missing as well to end that inning. So very good inning of work there by Reed Garrett. Then we move on to the bottom of the eighth. Hunter Goodman remains in the game, and Zach Agnos replaces Tyler Kinley as he comes into pitch. Brandon Nimmo will come in, and he would fly out in his first at bat, but then Juan Soto comes through, and he'd hit a homer into right field as well. Into right field as well. He would actually pull that home run to give the Mets a 5-3 lead and a little bit of breathing room. And then Pete Alonso would fly out to end the inning, and Brett Beatty would ground out as well to end that inning. Sorry. We then move on to top of the ninth. Edwin Diaz comes in to replace Reed Garrett, and sorry guys, my throat's a little dry, but anyway, Diaz comes in. Sam Hilliard would lead off the inning with a single, then a wild pitch on a slider by Diaz. So Sam Hilliard moves up to second base, but then Diaz comes back and then strikes out the next 3 batters as he gets Tovar, McMahon, and Brenton Doyle all the strikeout to end that game. So overall, like I said, solid game by the Mets. Would like to see a little bit more from the offense, because this is a pitching staff where you should really be destroying the Rockies, but the offense does just enough, and overall pitching was solid. Clay Holmes went out there, give you length, and then Reed Garrett and Edwin Diaz have been just shut down like what we've seen out of them over these last couple weeks. So yeah, listen, before we get out of here, yeah, and then also with the fact, like I was going to bring up, Marte did start in the 2-hole over Brandon Nimmo. He'll start in left field as well. Listen, I would have liked to see Nimmo play this game, but obviously, and they mentioned this on the broadcast where Nimmo had a bit of cramp in his leg yesterday towards the end of the game. So listen, do I love to see Marte in the 2 hole? No. Do I love to see him in left field either? No, I do not. But listen, they won the game. They should win this game, like, because again, it is the Rockies, so it worked out. But hopefully, and especially with this Dodger series coming up, because Nimmo played such a good series, especially in the 2 hole, I beg Mendy, keep Brandon Nimmo in the 2 hole. He looks a lot better. He looks a lot comfortable. He's actually working counts. He's making hard contact, and it's overall working, and the offense has looked a little bit better since Nimmo has made that switch and has batted in the 2 hole. So just keep Nimmo in that 2 hole, and pretty much like what Evan said yesterday on the post game show yesterday, keep the top five, the top four of the order pretty much the same until until there needs to be a change, or hopefully there doesn't have to be a change, and this is just the top four, top five that you could roll with throughout the rest of the season. So yeah, overall solid, but let's go through your guys' comments here. Ray, what is going up? Might be nitpicky, but Holmes has been allowing the long ball lately. Hopefully he can minimize that. All in all, no complaints. He's been doing all we can ask for. Yeah, and that's the thing that I brought up earlier, which is one of the reasons why I want to see his swing and miss stuff more come back a little bit more, just because, like you said, and like I brought up, the home run ball has started to bite him a little bit in his last couple starts. So, but hopefully he can work on that, and hopefully he gets a swing and miss stuff back. So, but overall, like you said, he's doing pretty much what we can ask for. Because I mean, and like I brought up before, this is the first time ever in Holmes' career as a starter that he managed to work 7 innings, and full complete 7 innings as well. And that's something that we've been begging for starters to do more recently, is start to minimum 6 innings, but if you could push and go that extra 7 innings, then you take that. And thankfully for Holmes today, like I said, I don't love that he gave up the 3 runs, but the fact that he went out there, he gave you length, I'll take that every day of the week. Trade Beatty now. I mean, listen, Beatty's playing well right now. Obviously, didn't have a great game today. I think he took an 0-4, but right now, I don't think you can trade Brett Beatty, just because really he's your only solid third baseman right now. I mean, listen, if Ronnie Mauricio comes up and he's tearing the cover up the ball, then sure. I mean, you could realistically look to trade Brett Beatty, because Ronnie Mauricio could play third base. But as of right now, do you want to see Mark Vientos play third? Because I know I don't. And listen, Brett Beatty might not be an all-star. He might not ever, turn into that type of player. But right now, Brett Beatty's just doing what we need him to do. He's going up to the plate. He's giving you solid at-bats, and he's playing reliable third base at that corner, which is something that Mark Vientos is currently not doing. So until there's another third baseman that could come up like Mauricio, or, the Mets make a trade for a third baseman, you can't move Brett Beatty right now, which I know that's crazy considering that we were asking him. I mean, and this is pretty much all of us. We were pretty much asking for him to not be on the team, especially at the start of the year. But listen, he's turned it around, and I like the way that he's playing. Obviously, like I said, took the 0-4 today, which I don't love to see, but Beatty's playing well right now. Beatty's playing, and listen, when we get to the trade deadline, or like I said, when Mauricio comes up, and he either performs well, or we could obviously re-explore that talk again. But as of right now, I don't think you can trade Brett Beatty. Before he starts struggling. Yeah, I mean, listen, I get the whole selling high thing, but right now, like I mentioned, with the fact that the Mets don't really have another option at third base, you can't really move on from Beatty right now. Nice length from Holmes. Need to limit the home run ball, absolutely. And Max, what is going on? And D Rails as well. What is going on as well? But yes, Max, I agree with you. Love the length from Clay Holmes, but like what you said, and like what Ray said, and like what I said, needs to limit the long ball. Stanley, what is going on? Do you trust Blackburn to start against the Dodgers? This is something that we're going to talk about tomorrow on the podcast. Obviously, when we preview the Dodger series. Do I trust Paul Blackburn tomorrow? No, not really. That's the short answer. But listen, I think in terms of from Blackburn, and we're going to talk about this tomorrow. Listen, for me, if Blackburn could go out there, he gives you 5 innings and gives up anything from 3 to 4 not 3 to 4 home runs, 3 to 4 runs. I'll take that as a success. I will take that as a success. I'm not looking for anything pretty from Paul Blackburn. Just eat as many innings as you can and limit the damage to as much as nothing. That's all I'm asking for out of Paul Blackburn. And then the offense is going to have to step up and do its thing, which hopefully they do tomorrow. I don't know who's pitching tomorrow for the Dodgers. I don't know if they've named the starter yet. No, they haven't. So I wonder who will be the starter tomorrow. But, you know, the offense is going to have to step up. The offense is going to have to step up because, we talked about it, when the last time the Mets played the Dodgers a week ago, we said the pitching is going to have to do its thing, but the offense, if the Mets are going to want to win that series or even minimal split, like what I'm asking for, then just, the offense is going to have to step up. Happy to he back in first for now. Oh, yeah. Happy to be back in first for now. Yeah, definitely. And that's something also I forgot to mention. The Brewers did sweep the Phillies, so Mets are currently 1 game ahead of the Phillies for first place in the NL East. So nice to see. Obviously, that doesn't mean that there is no problems with this team, and it doesn't mean that they have to fix anything or address anything. Doesn't mean that, but it is nice to reclaim first place back in the NL East. And hopefully the Mets could keep it like that for a very long time. And hopefully we don't have to go back to the second place anymore for the rest of the season. Probably not going to happen because the Phillies are also a good team too. But hopefully we could take first place here and just run with it throughout the rest of the season. Max, Lindor, Soto, and Alonso all played good in the series. Yes, that's something that we talked about on the podcast. Which that's something especially with this Rockies pitching staff, you would want to see a little bit more. But overall, they all had solid series, and hopefully hopefully they could use this now as a springboard. And listen, like I said, they're going to need these guys against the Dodgers, plain and simple. So yeah, hopefully they use this as motivation and confidence boosters, and hopefully this propels them now to get on a hot stretch, which we haven't really seen out of these top three yet, especially over a long period of time. Good problem to have with Beatty, Vientos, Mauricio, and Acuna. Acuna today had a poor day at the plate today overall. I believe he took an 0-4. He didn't get on base, I believe. Had a solid day in the field. But overall, you need a bit more from Acuna right now. And overall, because Mauricio today had another strong day in AAA, and his batting average right now is currently up to 513. So it's pretty much only a matter of time before Ronnie Mauricio comes up here and takes a spot. And right now, obviously you're not going to send up Beatty. Vientos, you were going to keep up here. And then, Acuna right now is going to be the move to send down to AAA once Mauricio is up here and ready. And listen, I'm ready for Ronnie Mauricio to come up here. I'm excited for Ronnie Mauricio to come up here. I pray to God that Chavez doesn't mess him up because right now down in AAA, he's hitting the ball hard. He's pulling the ball. He's hitting home runs. He's hitting for power. And you just know when he comes up here, Chavez is going to be like, nope, Ronnie. You got to hit ground balls. You can't hit the ball in the air. You got to hit that opposite field. I hope not. I hope he comes here and he smokes the ball like he's doing right now in AAA. But we'll see. We'll see. After the Dodgers series, Ronnie might get called up. Yeah, he could. Especially because after the Dodgers series, the Mets are going to play the Rockies again, this time in Coors Field. So hopefully, with the lower altitude or with the higher altitude and lower with the lower air resistance, and the fact that you could hit a lot more home runs in Coors Field. Hopefully, that's a spot where Mauricio comes up and he could start doing the damage right away. So hopefully, but we'll see. Listen, ideally on this road trip, right? With a 4-game set against the Dodgers and a 3-game set against the Rockies, my ideal thing, you go 5-2, split with the Dodgers, and then sweep the Rockies again. You go 5-2, and then you come back to Citi Field, and then you take on the Nationals for 3 games. So this is a spot in the schedule where the Mets could really fatten up on wins and do some damage, which they just got to keep on winning ball games. Got to keep obviously the brand of baseball has to improve, and that's something that we've been harping on throughout the season, but they just got to keep winning games. But yeah, overall, guys, that's going to be it from me on this post-game show. So as I mentioned before, make sure you guys leave a like and subscribe as well. We greatly appreciate you guys here. We greatly appreciate you guys' support here on the channel. Also, make sure to hit the notification bell to let you guys know anytime we go live on the channel or upload any videos. But yeah, that's going to be it from me, guys. Stay out. Be on the lookout for tomorrow as a podcast will be up tomorrow to cover this series and then preview the Dodgers series. But anyway, guys, that's going to be it from me. Let's go Mets. Peace out, baby.